Welcome to the 44th Assembly District Democratic Primary Forum. This forum is being sponsored by the League of Women Voters, Janesville Chapter, and Forward Janesville. The League is a nonpartisan national citizens organization whose mission is to educate and register voters as well as to improve election and government. The primary election will be held on August 14th, and of course we urge everyone to vote. This forum is being recorded tonight thanks to JATV. Information about its rebroadcasting will be found on the Janesville League Chapter's website as well as the website of Forward Janesville. The format tonight is as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and explain why they're running for Assembly. Then we will have questions that I will ask, and each candidate will get 1 minute to answer those questions. We may be including some questions from the audience. You have green cards that you can write questions on, and they'll be handed up. And then at the end, we'll have a final question. Each person gets 2 minutes. How can voters distinguish you from your opponents? So let's begin with the introduction. Each candidate, we'll start with Yuri, and I'm going to call you by your first name just to make this informal. You will have 2 minutes to introduce yourself and explain why you're running for Assembly.
Thank you, Janet. Well, my name is Yuri Rashkin, and I am running to represent the 44th Assembly District. I want to start by thanking League of Women Voters, all of you who made it here tonight. I think next debate probably needs to be at JPAC. And it's great to see so many people interested in being involved and looking at the candidates. Originally, I'm from Moscow, Russia, and I've been in the United States since 1988. I came as a refugee. And last 4 years, I served on Janesville City Council. What I got out of that experience is that it's an amazing opportunity and a privilege to serve community and serve public as a public servant. And that's what I look to do going forward. I think that right now we are sorely lacking in leadership. We have no representation, effective representation for our community in Madison. We have a person that is not helping our community, and I aim to change that. I look to be the voice. I look to bring good ideas to fruition. That's what I've done over the last 4 years on the council with different ideas that I brought forward, and I look forward to doing more of the same, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
Well, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Forward Janesville and the League for hosting this event, and also the League of Women Voters. I need to thank you for partnering with the school board with our initiative to opportunities for our students to register to vote. Thanks for doing that as well. And I have to thank my mother and my wife. They've been there through this entire election cycle with me. You know, I've been a resident of Janesville for over 50 years. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force, and I'm a retired Janesville firefighter for 30 years. So most of my career I've spent running in when others are running out. And that's exactly what I plan on doing in Madison, running into the Capitol and fighting as hard as I can for the policy and funding that we need here in Janesville. And I'm running because I see the positive side of Janesville. I see a school system, K through 12, Black Hawk Tech. We have a university in this town, and the need to connect the dots between a healthy education system and retention of jobs and creating new jobs in this community. That's my #1 goal, is to do that. An example of that would be United Alloy needs a very specific type of welder. And with Black Hawk Tech and the school systems, we can make and connect those dots. We have a wonderful future here in Janesville. Think of our infrastructure, and again, our schools, and the business, and an able and willing workforce in our community. I'm so excited. We have great things to come in the future. So thanks again.
Thank you, Kevin. Sam?
Thank you. I'd also like to start off by thanking the League of Women Voters and Forward Janesville and JATV for hosting this event tonight. I look at all the candidates up here, and I'm thoroughly happy and satisfied with the crop of candidates that have come out of this race. And I know no matter who comes through after August 14th, one of us will be representing this district and being sworn in January of 2013. So I'm very proud to be up here with these three other fine candidates. A little bit about myself, why I'm running. I've always been taught by my mom that giving back is the ultimate gift in life, and being taught that whom much is given, much is expected of. And I've come from a very humble background. I've called Janesville my home for 22 years now, and didn't have a lot growing up, but through education, through support from teachers, through counselors, and going on to UW-Rock County here in Janesville, I've been blessed and gifted with a lot throughout my life. Only 27, but I like to think that I have a lot of both life experience and also career experience. I've worked for the Obama administration as Deputy White House Liaison to the Department of Agriculture. I worked on the Obama presidency campaign for 23 months. I've worked for the governor of Iowa, Mayor Tom Barrett, Senator Russ Feingold, several members of Congress. And so I have a lot of political experience as well that I can bring to the table. And I'm hoping I can take my life experience and also my work experience to Madison and my passion of public service and giving back to the community. I've been on the council now for just a little over a year, almost a year and a half. I love being on the council, but I've really learned that a lot of the power in our state has been taken away from our local governments. And I'm hoping to go to Madison and return some of that power to our local governments. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Deb?
I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters and Forward Janesville for hosting this forum. We certainly all appreciate the ability to talk to such a wonderful crowd. So, in introduction of myself, I've been married to my husband, Rex, for 35 years. He's a physician educator at a family medicine residency program here in Janesville. We have 3 children who have successfully gone through universities, graduated from universities, and that's thank you, teachers of the Janesville Public Schools, because they graduated from here and they had a very good background to go on to a university system. I also have a Bachelor's of Science degree and a number of hours towards a Master's of Business Association's degree. I have run and owned and operated a couple of businesses. One was a medical clinic in Colby, Kansas that we built and operated. I also currently manage our family farm. I've also worked at Mercy Hospital in the laboratory for the last 19 years. I served on school board for 9 years. I was elected president during that time, and I also served on the chairs of the standing committees for multiple years. I've also mostly been very involved in the community. I have currently sit on the board of the Janesville YMCA. I was selected as a YWCA Woman of Distinction. I help with the Literacy Council fundraising efforts, and something that's very near and dear to me, which is HealthNet, and I volunteer there and think it's something so very important. I got into this race for the same reason that all of us probably did. We are very concerned about the priorities, especially in the budget. We saw the things that we think Wisconsin stands for, like education and healthcare and taking care of its population, was diminishing, and I think that's why we all got in. I think I have the background that would help in resetting budgetary priorities, and I would enlist your help. So thank you, and thank you again, and I look forward to the rest of the questions.
Thank you, Deb. We're going to start the first question with Kevin. What do you see as the state's role in attracting businesses and needed workers in the area?
I think to attract and retain business in our area is to, again, connect the dots between our education system and regional jobs in this area. I'm really interested in a venture capital program that is available for local business. If it's available for local business, that is affordable and is available to those that can provide local sustainable family and jobs, you know, based on good entrepreneurship and good young Americans, good young business people in our community. And I need to restate that it's a real important that we continue to work with sustainable energy businesses in town like Angie as well. So it's just as important to retain the businesses we have here as it is to attract new businesses as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Sam?
Could you restate the question?
Yes. What do you see as the state's role in attracting businesses and needed workers to the area?
Okay. Well, I think a big part of state government in any state is the ability and the role to provide the tools necessary for local communities to prosper and to attract new businesses and also retain businesses. Being on the city council, I know the importance and the power of tax incremental finance districts, TIFs. I'd like to see some retooling of TIFs. Right now, you can only use TIF money for development on new green space, on new space. You can't use it for brown sites like a GM or an old building. And I'd like to see the state go back and revisit that to change it, because a place like Janesville, we have a lot of brown sites, we have a lot of empty warehouse buildings where people could come in, and it would help us and make it easier to attract business with that. I'd also like to see portable tax credits, being able to sell those on the open market, and also the venture capital. I'd like to see also some movement on. I'm glad to see that Tim Cullen will be the chair of that new committee, and I'm hoping whoever wins the seat can really work with Tim to get that done.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Sam. Deb?
I think part of the role of the state is to make a fairness for all businesses to operate, which means creating a good infrastructure with roads, education, healthcare. And I think there also needs to be a premise in that question. What would it do to get creation of life-sustaining or jobs that pay a fair wage? So I think those are important. I think our educational system is vital in that aspect of creating jobs. And I also think that there's just concern that this last budget did just the opposite. It absolutely took jobs out of our market. The Act 10 just created a void that left so much income on the table that would not be spent because it went to tax credits that will not be used by corporations. I think it's vital that we get money back into the hands of the public sector and of the working class so that they have the ability to spend money, and that will create jobs.
Thank you, Deb. And Yuri?
Thank you. Well, there's always a question in my mind first, does the state need to do anything? Because when I look at the power of government and the awesome power that it is, I always ask, does it need to be used? Now, there are some useful things that state government can do to help. For instance, providing targeted incentives, because I think as we all agreed, we're all here because we're not happy with what's happening in Madison. And we know that saying we're open for business is not necessarily the approach that is winning us jobs, because what we need to be is we need to be open for jobs. We need to be able to bring and target and make Wisconsin attractive for well-paying jobs. When 44% of people who work at Walmart are still relying on food stamps, these are not well-paying jobs that are going to help our community grow and thrive. And so I look to provide some leadership in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. We'll start this time with Sam. What is your view about K-12 and higher education in this district?
Well, I believe it's obviously an important system. I graduated and went through it. I think the role, like Deb said with her daughters, and I went to school with some of her friends, I think the school district that we have here is very sound. It's been fiscally responsible for a long time with its board over the past decade or so. And actually, I think a lot of things that the governor did, along with this legislature and rubber stamp legislator that we have right now in the 44th, is Act 10 actually hurt a lot of municipalities and school boards by really hurting people in different districts, in school districts that were fiscally conservative over the past years and who weren't always taxing to the max, and then came in and really hurt our system. But I think that we have a great school system here. I'm glad that we have the tech system with Blackhawk. I think UW-Rock County is great. We have now the extension programs with Platteville and Whitewater, and you can get your 4-year degree and stay here in Janesville. So I think we have a great school district here that feeds into our higher education, and I think we need to do more to support that system.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sam. Deb?
Well, I obviously think the educational system here is very sound. Having been on the school board for 9 years and watching our capstone classes just be remarkable within the state. You know, we had more AP classes that were going on. I think our students are well prepared. I think it's important that we have a technical college here and a two-year associate school, because I think those can prepare students that aren't going on to a four-year graduate school. So I think we have the infrastructure here to have some amazing results if we can implement them, if we don't have to keep making cuts to the educational program. I think they are probably our greatest asset.
Thank you, Deb. Yuri?
Thank you. Well, I think we have two candidates at this table who are very well, intimately familiar with our education system. For me, I'm just a parent. And I am very much interested in making sure that the school system is preserved for my daughter and her children and everybody's children, because this is what makes Janesville so attractive to other communities, but also other businesses that are maybe looking to grow in Janesville or start in Janesville or come to Janesville. And so protecting our K-12 education is very important. And obviously right now it is facing a lot of difficult choices. And I think state has some role to play there to make the crisis, to alleviate the crisis. And once again, I look forward to making a difference there. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
There's some exciting things going on in Janesville right now, especially with our application for waiver of No Child Left Behind. It's a system based on high-quality teachers. That's why we have blue ribbon schools like Kennedy, but individual education plans so that we're tracking each student's progress through time, not just simple benchmarks with testing. So there's some exciting things going on. But I've got my eye on school funding. You know, $70 million less. You've seen what that's done to Janesville. Our class size ratio to teachers and pupil has increased. Another thing that I'm keeping my eye on is the voucher program. It costs our district almost $800,000 a year. That's been a 10-year waste of about $1 billion, and it hasn't proven to benefit the students at all. So school funding is going to be a big issue for us in the next budget.
Thank you, Kevin. The next question will start with Sam. Deb. Oh, I see. We're going to fight over this, are we? Okay. We'll start with Deb. What will your strategy be for dealing with the extreme polarization in the Assembly and state government?
Well, you know, I've been on many boards and many organizations, and I've never had a problem discussing. I was talking to you earlier about meeting people while I was knocking doors, and people appreciate civil conversation, and I think that that's just sorely lacking. I don't think that anyone goes to Madison and doesn't think that they're not going to help people. If we all go to Madison and think we're going to help people, then we should be able to discuss it. And I think civil discussion is always welcome by anybody.
Thank you, Deb. Yuri?
Thank you. It is a real problem. There is no question it is a real problem. And for my part, I have never been afraid to admit when someone makes a good point and then help them implement their idea if it is a good one. I think we need to be prepared to be open-minded, because that's what voters demand, and I think it behooves whoever is represented in Madison to provide that kind of representation, to bring people together. That is really what it's all about, and I think that's what I've done throughout my experience in Janesville, whether it is Janesville Mile, whether it is any number of festivals and concerts that I've been involved in putting together. We have, whether it's passing annual budgets on city council, all of it requires working together, knowing what your priorities are, and then listening to others and bringing their decisions and opinions together to form something that benefits all.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
I guess an example of the track I want to take is I presented a proposal that was passed on the school board that now the policy states that every represented group has an official chair at the table. So we can get immediate response, we get immediate opinions on what's going on in the district. And I'm going to encourage all the other assembly people in the Capitol to do the same. We need to do the footwork. We need to get out and engage. This is how we're going to get through this, is Go to a local business. Ask them what's working right. What can we do to help you provide jobs in this area, sustainable family jobs? What can we do to work together? And this is what I would do. I would hold office hours in Janesville. I would spend more time in Janesville giving everybody a seat at the table. This is how we're going to do it. You have to make the footwork to do that.
Thank you, Kevin. Sam?
Thank you. I'd like to start out with, I'm on the sidewalk committee, so want to know something about bipartisanship, just watched one of those meetings. I think all of us being either currently in office or have been in office in a nonpartisan fashion, we've all learned, especially myself being one of the newer ones, that you can't always get what you want, and you have to work together with people that you might not agree with 100% of the time. And then if you can get 50 to 75% of what you wanted, call it a success. And I think that's what whoever represents this district from here on out needs to keep in mind, so that you can't always get what you want and you need to work with the other side. I think all of us up here supported the recall. We probably all signed the petition. But the voters have spoken. Governor Walker was retained, and I think there's several issues that all of us need to work together. He supports the Green Tier Initiative, which is something I support here at the local level. He supports small farmers, and he's been doing a lot with the Department of Agriculture federally to help our small farmers in drought areas like Rock County, and I think those are areas that we need more bipartisan workship. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. We're back to Yuri for the beginning question here. Please explain your view of Badger Care.
My view of Badger Care is that it is a system that provides assistance to those that are not able to receive and obtain medical health care insurance coverage otherwise. I think that it is an extremely important program, and it helps children, it helps families, it helps preserve our way of life, because health care is such an important issue that we are now looking at finally being able to implement on a state level with Affordable Care Act that was passed and upheld by Supreme Court. So now I'm just hoping that, and hoping means that I'm going to do something about it, that Governor begins to implement the healthcare exchanges, and that ACA becomes finally functional, and we will continue to move in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
Badger Care is a successful program. It helps people, just above poverty level that can qualify to get health care. I have a grandson that his mother uses Badger Care, and it provides health care, preventive health care for this young man. And I'm tying this back into education because we need our families, especially our children, to have health care so that they can get the education, so they can get the support, so they can get the heads up that like the rest of us have. The problem is there's many waiting lists, and there's always new federal guidelines coming down to try to shrink the eligibility, to try to shrink the qualifications. So that's very important to my heart because it affects me directly.
Thank you, Kevin. Sam?
Thank you. Well, my view of Badger Care is it's pretty simple. It's a safety net that is available to people who live on the fringes of our society economically, who need help, who need a leg up, who perhaps are single parents. They need health insurance for their kids because they can't afford it. Whether they work 1, 2, 3 jobs, they just can't seem to make ends meet. And sometimes the government needs to help those folks out with preventive health care, with regular checkups, and when they need to go to the ER. If anything, Governor Walker, through his budget repair bill, actually opened the door to potential for universal health care in our state, because what he did was he took away oversight from the legislature on setting parameters for who's eligible for Badger Care. So theoretically, if you had a governor in there who said, well, if you make below $250,000, you could be eligible. And I think we need to start working towards getting everyone on a health care program, whether it's through the exchange with the Affordable Care Act. We're given $1 billion to implement, which the governor has refused. I'd like to see him move forward and accept those funds.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Deb?
Badger Care, in theory, should be a great program, and it works well for children and parents of children. They do have access to health care, assuming they can find physicians that will take Badger Care or God forbid if we can find a dentist that will take Badger care. But it doesn't work well for the average citizen because they're on a Badger Care Core Plus, which has a waiting list of, I have no idea how many hundreds of thousands now. So it doesn't work well for those people. That's where HealthNet has come in. I think that the ACA needs to, the Affordable Care Act needs to be implemented. We have hundreds of thousands of people waiting for health care. Not to take care of them is just going to increase the cost of medicine for everyone, and it's not the right thing to happen anyway. They should be taken care of. They should have preventative care needs taken care of. So Badger Care, in theory, should work well, and it does for a few, but not nearly enough.
Thank you, Deb. So we'll be beginning with Kevin. We'll be beginning with you, Kevin, this time.
Okay.
Name one piece of legislation that was signed into law this past year that you have concerns about, and explain why.
Just one?
Well,
That's a hard one.
Well, it's got to be the budget bill. And primarily, that really is out front because, you know, I'm a union person. I've been in the union for 30 years, and I continue to pay my dues. And to take collective bargaining away from us, something that has been in our history for 50 years, something that works, something that worked for both sides, something that protected family, wages, working conditions, and benefits, was just saddening to me. And that is something that I would certainly produce another bill and put that on the table, because if we don't, we won't be able to talk about it. So it's the collective bargaining piece of that larger bill.
okay, thank you. Yuri? I'm sorry, I'm looking right at you. Sam?
I'm the other guy with a goatee.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd have to agree with Kevin. I think the budget repair bill would probably be the one that I had the most concerns with. The taking away of collective bargaining, the taking away of sitting down at the table with your employer, leveling the playing field to be able to talk about your workplace safety, having an independent arbitration to go through that process, I think really hurt our state. Now, not everyone's in a union, not everyone's a public sector worker, but it is those group of people who do a lot of the yeoman's work of our state in providing us services, whether they're nurses or teachers, whether they plow snow. And a lot of these people who have these jobs help keep everyone else's wages up and help fight for us, whether we're not in that union directly. And so I think working to restore collective bargaining, or at least parts of it, like arbitration and workplace safety, I think are some things that we really need to go back and work on.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Deb?
I'm like these gentlemen. There are several things I didn't like. I didn't like the voter ID bill, but that's been gutted by the courts. I wasn't very fond of taking the meat out of the equal pay for equal work. But I think it's the budget that will consume most of our time, and also was probably the thing we would like to undo the most. I think it just has a different set of priorities than what we would have. Not only Act 10 and the fact that it did away with collective bargaining for the public workers, but that it diminished education, it diminished health care, and it didn't create jobs. So I think that we would work on preparing a budget that would go back to our old Wisconsin values and address those issues. Also the fact that Act 10, created a vacuum in our economy, and I think that led to many other things, and I think that needs to be undone.
Thank you, Deb. Yuri?
Well, I think you could have stated the question of what do you not like about Act 10 and the budget. I think budget repair bill really, even more so than the budget, because the way in which it was done. And I think it is really important that we need to have respect for the process. There is certain steps that need to be taken, there's a certain way that bill becomes a law. And it was done in a way that was underhanded and disrespectful of the citizens. When I was on the city council and Act 10 came up, the city council got together at an emergency session at 7 o'clock in the morning because we just wanted to make sure that we registered our dissatisfaction, our deep concern about this document, because Janesville has historically had great relations with unions. We've been able to work things out. We've never, well, not never, but throughout this crisis, we haven't laid anybody off. We had great relations. So we wrote a letter to our representatives and said, please vote against Act 10. We do not support it. Did any of them vote for it? Yes, they all voted for it, and they showed their really not willingness to work with their own city council. I think that's a very important part of representation that we're missing.
Thank you, Yuri. We'll be beginning this next round with Sam. Sam, how will you balance the interests of business and workers?
I'm next, right?
Yes,
Okay. How do I balance the interests of
business and workers.
business and workers? Well, I think, again, this probably comes back to a level playing field. You know, the slogan has been open for business, Wisconsin is open for business, but we also need to be open for our workers and our people who will be working at those businesses, and not just throwing out tax incentives and tax credits for companies, and then not worrying about the long-term effects of, you know, are these tax credits or incentives actually tied to job creation? I think that was a big mistake that the legislature and the governor, even though it was very bipartisan in the early days before the protests at the Capitol, I don't think that they looked at that close enough and tied it to actual job creation. So I'd like to see that done. But the relationship, I think, across the board, we need to have a government, we need to have a set of policies in place that level the playing field with our workers and employers. I think right now you're seeing a lot of the accumulation of wealth in our country and also in our state at the top and not at the bottom. And we're a consumer society, so if people aren't consuming, they're not buying, and if they're not making items, no one's buying them. And so I think we need to look back and make sure that we have a level playing field for everyone.
Thank you, Sam. Deb?
The question in itself kind of insinuates that it's mutually exclusive, and I don't think they are. I think what is good for the worker is good for business. I think that when we give incentives to business that actually create jobs, those incentives should not be just tax credits that go back to the owners, but could be dispersed among the employees. I think that what I talked about first, that the government should be involved in infrastructure and making a fairness so that all businesses have the ability to compete equally. And I just don't think they should be mutually exclusive. I am very concerned at the present moment that we have so many companies that are using temp workers. That means they'll be minimally paid with no benefits and no ever a day off or a holiday. Now, I assume that is good for business, but it's not long-term good for the public, and I think that they should be I think they should be together.
Thank you, Deb. Yuri?
Thank you. I think it's very important to look at the priorities. And what is the priority? Is that to create jobs? Is it to create well-paying jobs? Is it to help businesses grow? And right now, we have clearly a government that is all confused about its priorities, because what we need to have is a state that is helping businesses create jobs. We need to have a state that comes in from the position of strength and says, look, we have a great state here. You want to be here, and promote ourselves that way, versus what I was seeing on city council, where it was an arms race of trying to offer more and more to each company in hopes of almost desperation attracting businesses to our community. We have great communities, and Janesville is definitely at my top of the list, because we are offering so much to other communities or other businesses. So I think that having the priorities of finding a balance between businesses and workers, and finding opportunities for states to hire people, for companies, or states to encourage companies. It's a ladder. So state encourages company to hire workers, and everybody gets along.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
Our platform, our campaign is founded in the best consumer for mercantile industry and American business is a well-paid worker. So what comes first, the business or the employer, or the employee, I should say? But in Janesville, we're going to work hard to expose the positive environment we have here so that businesses want to come here. I sit on the TIF district committee, and one of the first things businesses ask for or about is, how's your school system? So again, it's our education system, It's our infrastructure like our Highway 26, and our expansion of I-90, the accessibility to good transportation. And think of yourself, what's important to you as an employee? You want to be treated with respect, you want a fair wage for working hard, and we want health care. We need to pass that Affordable Care Act and get transparency to health care so that businesses can save some money and we can get good health care.
Thank you. We'll be beginning the next round with Deb. The question is, and you all talked about Act 10, so let's just assume that's out of this discussion. If, when elected, what will be the first action you take in the Assembly on behalf of your constituents? That would be you.
Again, it has to go back to the budget, because everything that will happen in the Assembly, that will by far outplay everything else. So disregardless of if Janet says of Act 10, we have to readdress the priorities in the budget. We decreased education by $1.3 billion, while we gave away tax credits to the tune of $2.6 billion over a 10-year period of time, and they weren't tied to any jobs. So we lost education and no certainty of jobs. So I think that that's just vitally important in the budget. And also included in that is the implementation of ACA, the Affordable Care Act. It is the law of the land, and it is wrong not to get it implemented. And I do not understand why anyone would not want the ability to view and go through a healthcare exchange and know what kind of product they were getting.
Thank you, Deb. Yuri?
Well, the first and last thing, then my decision, the priority is to help my district. I think it is very important to remember who sent you to Madison, and it is all of you. And so that is going to be my priority, is to find ways that I can be helpful to my district. Now, yes, budget is important. Women's rights are crucial. We have a lot of items that are going to be on our agenda, and we will be addressing all of them one at a time. So I think it's just looking at the impact, but the budget is going to be crucial. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
I think the first thing I would do is to find the nearest restroom in the Capitol, because if you've ever been up there, you can't find a restroom anywhere. But seriously, what I would do is get back to Janesville as fast as I can, surround myself with people that know much more about this community than I do, and have some collective wisdom gathered here between business, chemists, engineers, laborers, teacher, police, fire, and bring the community together and say, okay, what can we do next? What can we do to help this community? What can we do to help this district?
Thank you, Kevin. Sam?
Thank you. Well, I know we're supposed to leave Act 10 out of this, but I think the big part of any legislator is always your budget. We do it biannually here in Wisconsin, and so it's going to be the big thing going in. Whoever's elected is going to have to start working on the budget right away. And I think going into it, I would go in and fight for the priorities of Janesville, of the 44th district. I think it was Vice President Joe Biden who said, don't show me. Don't tell me what your priorities are. Show me in your budget. And I think what this past budget has shown, what the priorities are of the current governor and party in power, is that they hold the interests of big business, big government, charter schools, privatizing work over things like education and infrastructure and social programs that really help people who need it. And so I would go there and fight for education, restoring the $1.5 billion that we've lost over the past 2 years, fighting for jobs, fighting for the people who don't have a voice. And I think that's the job of any representative, is to fight for the voiceless.
Thank you. The next person here leading off the next round will be you, Yuri.
All right.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. I have two questions here, and they're kind of on the same topic, so I'm going to ask them together, and we'll see how that goes. The first one is, how do you balance care of the environment with the desire to encourage business growth, but then another person linked it to the projected new mining business, that the new push for the mine up north.
Right. It's an excellent question. Having been on the council and worked on some of those large economic projects, it is always a difficult challenge because there's a pressure to create jobs, but yet you have to look at the cost of those jobs, cost to the environment, for instance. And I think finding that balance and bringing everybody to the table is really very important to get the right result for everyone for long term. As far as the second question about mining, I think we need to take a look at what other states are doing. Frankly, we have some states that are able to combine mining with protection of the environment. And if they do, and if they have a law that works, I think it would be smart of us to take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
The mining bill sounds like it's going to be discussed. So my focus will be to make sure the environmental laws, policy, and regulations are enforced. That's utmost. And to make an informative decision, you got to go up there and look around and ask around, but it will be on the table. You know, one thing that's always been on my mind too, and I have their pamphlet here, is the defunding or reduction of funding for Focus on Energy. It was proven that for every dollar spent on Focus on Energy, we recovered $2 in the economy. This is where we have to focus on sustainable energy and renewable energy as well. This Focus on Energy saves us energy bills, creates jobs, and protects the environment.
Thank you, Kevin. Sam?
Thank you. Well, I think number one priority for any of us should be going into the assembly for job creation, but I think when it comes to projects such as mining or anything that would detrimentally hurt our environment, our natural resources, or the natural beauty that our state offers, I think that's when you have to kind of step back and weigh the pros and cons. I know personally I oppose the mining bill. It sounds like it'll probably come back up, and again, glad to see Senator Cullen taking leadership in that position. But I think what we've seen this past 18 months, 19 months now is a politicalization of our Department of Natural Resources. Tommy Thompson was the one who took the independence away from the DNR by making it independently appointed by a board of trustees, and now it's appointed by the governor and part of his cabinet. And I think when you politicize our environment, our natural resources, I think you're just literally playing with fire. And I think we need to return the DNR back to its independence and not cut corners when trying to create jobs.
Thank you, Sam. Deb?
Well, it's obvious that we need minerals. I mean, we as humans just consume things from the earth, but we have to do it in a way that mitigates any effect on our environment, especially to our water. As someone who manages a farm, I know that water is our last great resource, and it will concern me a great deal if we don't keep the water clear. But we can learn from other states. I was talking to Clean Wisconsin and was talking about groundwater management districts that we have in Kansas, and it's something they don't have here, and it will become more important over time. Also, when we were when I was talking to the Wisconsin League of Conservation Voters, they were talking about the politicization of the DNR. It will be very important that the head of the DNR is not just a political person, but has the best interest of the state, both for the environment and for jobs.
Thank you, Deb. Kevin, you're up first for this next question. Do you believe there's a war on women? And if so, what will you do to counter it?
Well, evidently from the media and the press, there's a war on women. But let me put it this way. I was a firefighter paramedic, and one of my best partners on the paramedic unit was a gal named Jamie Keshnick. And we were partners for 3 years. She worked side by side with me, showed up and worked hard, got paid the same, got the same benefits. And today, she is the first Janesville lieutenant. So, and another example, and I believe in equal pay, equal work for any gender. My mother was a Phi Ed teacher and was instrumental in promoting women's athletics in town. I have utmost respect for those women that I worked with and will work with.
Thank you, Kevin. Sam?
Thank you. Well, I certainly believe that there is a concerted effort, not just here in Wisconsin, but I think nationally by a certain far faction of the Republican Party that is looking to limit women's rights, whether it's on pay or health care or right to choose whether or not to have an abortion. It's legal in the state. Roe v. Wade made that the law of the land in the early 70s, but states like Kansas, like Virginia, are now requiring women to go through all these extra hoops and hurdles just to get basic health care, which should be their right under law. And so I would oppose any sort of legislation going forward. I opposed the recent law that was passed that requires a doctor to kind of play counselor with a woman now here in Wisconsin before she decides to go through a procedure of abortion. I think that's wrong. I think that's overstepping bounds. I think women, it's between themselves and God and their conscience on what they want to do, and I don't believe it's the government's role to get involved in that. And I would oppose any legislation attacking women's rights further.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Deb?
If it's not war, it's certainly close to open hostility. There is, they took the bite out of Act 20 of equal pay for equal work. They have defunded some of Planned Parenthoods, which is where many women in Wisconsin get their medical care. They have intruded on making medical decisions for women about abortion and about birth control. They have taken away many they've invaded the family, especially for elderly women, because they do outlive their husbands. No offense. But they do outlive their husbands. They diminished the Homestead Credit Act. They have interfered with senior care. So these things, in totality, do create an atmosphere that is negative to women.
Thank you, Deb. Yuri?
I think there's no question that there is war on women. And I unfortunately don't believe it is limited to Wisconsin. I had the opportunity to speak at a rally, United Against War on Women in Madison, and it was amazing, the stories that were told by the speakers, and just to see how people are coming together, because for me, it is really unfortunate to see any group used as a wedge issue and people playing politics with other people's future. I think that is inappropriate and wrong. Yes, I support everybody's right to make their own healthcare choices about their bodies and about their health. To me, this is something that the government absolutely has no business in limiting people's rights. But I think that this is a wedge issue because we should be talking about maybe creating a job or two in Wisconsin, but instead we are attacking the majority of voters because there are more women voters than there are men voters. So that's not really a smart politic to me either.
Thank you, Yuri. We'll be having Sam lead off on this question. What do you see as the differences in holding state office as opposed to local office?
Well, I guess speaking from experience, you have to raise a lot more money. Well, obviously there are big differences. I think obviously with state office, it's partisan. It's red versus blue. It's black and white. It's right and wrong. Where nonpartisan office actually functions. I think people would probably say they're probably more satisfied with their local governments or county supervisors as opposed to their state legislators in Madison or Washington, D.C. And I think going forward, again, no matter which one of us goes against Joe Nylands in November, and I think we'll eventually beat him, we all have municipal experience, and I think that's something that's sorely lacking in Madison, is that experience of nonpartisan, bipartisan experience working together with people who you might not always agree with, but you have to get something done at the end of the day. In Madison, someone can just sit on their thumbs, they still collect a paycheck, and they get reelected time and time again. And I think that's something that needs to change, and I'm hoping to bring that attitude of nonpartisan office to Madison.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
Deb?
you.
Well, I think the biggest difference is that when you sit on a local board, You know the people you're working with. You're working for a smaller common goal. You may have differences of opinion, but you know the people you're working with. You have the ability to sit down and talk with them, maybe outside of the boardroom, and you know a little of their life experiences. I assume when you go to Madison that some of those niceties go away. You don't know the people. You're working for different goals from different communities. So I think it will become even more important that we learn to communicate about why it's important to our communities and not just talk in hyperboles, about issues that don't relate to just individuals. So I think that'll be the biggest difference in that we won't know each other and we won't know exactly what their concerns are and their causes.
Thank you, Deb. Yuri?
I think the biggest difference probably is the amount of difference that can be made. Serving on the council was an amazing experience. I am deeply honored and grateful to everyone that voted for me and gave me this opportunity to make a difference. But on the council or on school board, you're 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 9. Being in the assembly and being a representative for the entire district comes with a great responsibility because you are truly representing everyone in your district. There is nobody who is going to, have that kind of opposition like you can experience on a school board or city council, and therefore it becomes about trust, and trust that people have in their elected leaders to do the best job for them. So I think the bar is set a little higher, and I welcome it.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
There are many similarities and differences. I think one of the biggest similarities coming across my mind is you still have to be able to communicate with other human beings and individuals. I mean, that's a learned trait that we learn early in school. But when you compare the school board budget of $120 million to $60 billion, that's a significant difference. But one thing that I'm really trying to think about is the caucuses up there. What kind of strength do I need, to be able to stand up and say, no, this is what Janesville needs? Or I think we got at least 30, maybe 40 questionnaires from special interest groups and lobbyists. It's going to take some real courage, knowledge, and help to sift through all that stuff. And again, what's best for our community?
Thank you, Kevin. We're beginning the final round now, and you'll have 2 minutes each for this final questions. How can voters distinguish you from your opponents? And we're not interested in tall and short and those kinds of woman-man things.
Or the obvious.
But as a representative of your community, how can you be distinguished?
Well, we've all talked about our experiences and our expertises up here, and I think those will be valuable when we go to do, when you look at different legislative acts. But I think I offer a unique perspective because I have a lot of positive leadership experience in many areas. In business, I've run a couple of businesses. Even in agriculture because I manage a family farm. I've been involved in education. I was elected as the president and served as the chairs of boards. Every aspect of my life has been in some way involved in healthcare. I've worked with families and understand families through the Y and working with the Y and the Literacy Council. So I think I just bring a unique perspective of knowing the community, but also having positive leadership skills in all those areas. Every time I was involved in a project, I became a leader of that project. I also think that, at one of the other meetings, somebody suggested that maybe I was too nice and too soft-spoken, and I didn't consider those as being detriments to getting something done because I do have toughness. I've had the toughness to run businesses, and I've had the toughness to make hundreds of decisions and votes on all the boards that I've sat on. I think I do bring a calmness, I hope. And I know that I have several personality traits that will be of importance if you're making decisions. One is curiosity. I want to know all the permutations of whatever I decide to do will have on other laws. I hope I'm a good listener. I want to be able to respect what other people have to say. And I know for certain that I always work hard. And that's my pledge to the people of Janesville. I will always work hard to do my best to do what is right for Janesville.
Thank you, Deb. Yuri?
I will be Joe Nylons. We are at a very important point in time. We have a real opportunity to return representation to Janesville. We have spoken a lot about our credentials, about our leadership skills, and I believe that I've shown over and over, and I look forward to continuing to show that I have leadership skills and I get people to work together and come up with great solutions, because this is how you create representation, is you bring people together. But I think we've talked really quite a bit about what we have done, and I think we need to look forward to the future. And therefore, I'm looking to propose what I'm calling a Rashkin Reset. And it's a 3-point plan of what we need to do and what I'm going to do for Janesville as a representative for the 44th District. First of all, we need jobs. And therefore, I'm looking to bringing a college to downtown Janesville. We need a medical college that's going to work with our learning institutions, and it's going to be a huge boon to our downtown, and I look forward to creating those partnerships. Second, I am looking to open new markets for Janesville businesses in Russia using my culture, heritage, bilingual abilities, whatever else I can do to help our local businesses expand and create new markets in Russia. I think that's very important. I look forward to perhaps taking a delegation of local business and community leaders so that we could create new relationships and help Janesville. And finally, I'm looking forward to bringing together local area nonprofits. We have so many nonprofits that are filling such huge gaps in services that are no longer provided by our government. And I think it's very important to bring people together, so I'm doing that as a biannual summit and getting nonprofits to work together. So with that in mind, I hope you will check that plan out on www.yurirashkin.com. Thank you for your time, and I hope I can count on your vote on August 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. Kevin?
Thank you. I've lived in Janesville for over 50 years. I've created and cultivated relationships throughout 50 years, which I think gives me a vast more chance at opportunity to engage that collective wisdom in our community. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force, so I know what it's like to leave home and serve your country. I've been a union member for 30 years. It didn't take me long to understand what that meant. 1980, I got hired on the job. 4 months later, I was going to be laid off. My brothers and sisters saved my job by 1 vote, so I know how important that is. You know, our campaign has been like a powerful locomotive, and we're just gaining traction, and once you get going, you have a lot of momentum. And all of you have fueled that with your support. And our cars are full of issues that are important for us to take to Madison. But the first stop is the primary, August 14th. The second stop is November, the general primary, and the last stop will be in Madison. And with your support, we can do that. So I'm asking for your vote, August 14th, that's Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Sam?
Thank you. Albert Einstein once said that the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I think that's what we do a lot with our politicians. We vote for the same type of people, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, and expect something different. And I'm hoping I can be that something different, not that brick wall that we keep running into over and over again. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not doing this because I need a paycheck. I'll be fine. I'm not doing this because it's a passing hobby, and I'm not doing this because I feel I'm next in line or it's somehow owed to me, but I'm doing this because I want to give back to my community. I think the question was what differentiates us from each other. I think a big part of it, as I've been canvassing, going door to door, talking with voters, showing up to different events, obviously one thing that sticks out is my age. I am a minority. And I think that's something that we haven't tried yet. People in the age range of 18 to 24 nationally have an unemployment rate of 46%. I support things like Badger Care. I support things like Medicare and Medicaid, and I think we need to look after our senior citizens, our retirees, especially here in Janesville. We have a lot of GM retirees that we need to look after and their pensions and making sure that they're okay. But I think we need to have someone who's also keeping an eye on the upcoming future generations, the people who are unemployed, the people who are struggling to go to college, to make a difference, to buy that first home, to start a family and make sure that they're being able to provide for that young family. And so I think it provides a unique experience for the generation that's currently trying to come up and the one behind that. And I hope I can provide a voice of difference, of change that we haven't had before. And I would humbly ask for your vote and your support on August 14th and again on November 6th in the general election. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and Forward Janesville, we thank these candidates for participating in this forum, and we thank JATV for recording these proceedings. As I said earlier, you can check the League of Women Voters, the Janesville website, and the Forward Janesville website for rebroadcasting times, so you can see this all over again and share it with your friends and neighbors. I think you can also probably find parts of it on YouTube, a bit here and a bit there and a bit there and so on. And remember that the primary election is on August 14th. We urge everyone to vote. Thank you.